In the last few months in WWE, we've seen quite a bit of recycling going on, haven't we? And no, I don't mean the resident champion of the planet, Daniel Bryan. I am, of course, talking about finishing moves. At WWE Raw Reunion, we saw the Fiend Bray Wyatt attack Mick Foley with his own mandible claw, before keeping the malicious move for himself. And with Kevin Owens also recently adopting Stone Cold Steve Austin's Stunner as his new match ender, we're wondering if this could be the sign that we're getting a few more legends handing down their moves to current members of the roster. And if this is to be the case, then there's plenty of famed finishing moves which we'd like to see make a return to regular WWE programming in 2019. I'm Adam Nicholas, and this is 10 current WWE superstars who should adopt a Legends finishing move. Number 10, Bobby Lashley, Goldberg's Jackhammer. Does anyone know what Bobby Lashley's actual finisher is in WWE these days? He's gone through several since his return to WWE, and it's difficult to keep track of them all. Lately he's been back on the spear, but given that that move belongs to the big dog these days, it might be a smart move for Lashley to freshen up his moveset. For a while when he first returned, he was using a delayed vertical suplex to finish matches. Now, while this move displayed an impressive amount of strength, it didn't always look strong when it came to being a finish. Swap the suplex out for a jackhammer though, and you've got something a little bit more devastating. Now, there's plenty of parallels that can be drawn between Bobby Lashley and Bill Goldberg. They were both factory-made superstars by WWE and WCW respectively. They're both spear-wielding monsters who were built off the back of an undefeated streak, and well, they're both bald as well. Booking these two in a feud together at some point would make a lot of sense. And after redeeming his Super Showdown match with a brilliant squash against Dolph Ziggler at SummerSlam, Bill Goldberg has proved that he could still have a few more matches left to give in WWE. If Lashley's going to become a credible main event threat again, then he needs a big win. So why not have him beat Goldberg, inherit the jackhammer, and then prepare himself for the inevitable showdown with Brock Lesnar. Number 9, Baron Corbin, Kurt Angle's Angle Lock. Now, as much as you all might not want to remember that Baron Corbin was the one to retire Kurt Angle, I can still picture the look of joy on his face as he got that 3 count over the Olympic champion. And I'll be completely honest with you, it absolutely fills my little heart with joy. Look at him. Look how happy he is. So what better way to commemorate that moment and add another heel touch to Baron Corbin's repertoire than for WrestleMania's favourite son to adopt the ankle lock to his arsenal? It would serve as a constant reminder that Corbin is a top heel, whether fans like it or not. While Ken Shamrock popularised the ankle lock in WWE, and it's been used by a number of different wrestlers since, the move is most often associated with Kurt Angle. And even better, given that this move is usually employed by those with a legitimate wrestling background, well, wouldn't that just annoy fans even more? Number 8, Cesaro, Eddie Guerrero's Lasso from El Paso. Cesaro has already busted out a Texas Cloverleaf variation once or twice recently, but the Lasso from El Paso would be a great finishing move to add to his arsenal. Now, stop me if you think that you've heard this one before, but there's potential in Cesaro's new run as a singles competitor. In the past, nothing major has ever materialised for the Swiss Superman, but there's still hope. And you know what it is? It's the hope that kills you. However, if WWE do see main event value in Cesaro this time around, then a new finisher and a couple of strong wins would be a good way to kickstart his rise up the card. The Texas Cloverleaf was invented by Dory Funk Jr. and popularised by Dean Malenko. However, Eddie Guerrero's famed version of the move, dubbed the Lasso from El Paso, is a fan favourite and one of the best looking incarnations of the submission. Admittedly, there's not much of a connection between Cesaro and Guerrero other than their technical brilliance, but let's be honest, we've seen enough people borrow the frog splash, so why not pay tribute to the legend in another way? Viva la raza! Number 7, Shinsuke Nakamura, The Undertaker's Hell's Gate. During Shinsuke Nakamura's recent dethroning of Finn Balor for the Intercontinental title, the King of Strong Style looked like he might be back to his badass best. And then SummerSlam came, and SummerSlam went, and Nakamura and the IC title were nowhere to be seen. But despite missing the biggest show of the summer, a vicious heel Nakamura seems to be the way to go, and something that would help cement that viciousness, as well as tie into his legitimate mixed martial arts skill set, would be a triangle choke. And what better iteration of that move than The Undertaker's Hell's Gate? Now, Nakamura already uses a triangle choke from time to time in his matches, but it's never been employed as a way that he wins the match. Rather than try to build that choke back up, however, why don't we have a bit of fun here and put on our magical dream booking caps, because obviously that always works out really well for us, doesn't it? Shinsuke Nakamura versus The Undertaker would be a fascinating matchup for sure, and while I would never have suggested this one just a few months ago, Undertaker's simple discovery of wearing a tank top at Extreme Rules has genuinely given him at least 2 more years in WWE. While Nakamura might be pushing his luck to get the victory over the dead man, he could spend the build-up of the feud attacking and choking out Taker with his own Hell's Gate submission. Then, regardless of a win, a loss, or a draw, he could adopt the finishing move as his own moving forward. Number 6, Sasha Banks, William Regal's Power of the Punch. Having returned as a heel recently on Monday Night Raw following a 5-month absence from WWE, the boss is back and she's badder and bluer than ever before. With a return to her heel roots, now is the perfect time for Banks to mark her rebirth with a new finisher. As someone who literally comes out wearing legit boss brass knuckles for every single match, Sasha Banks using William Regal's illegal finishing move makes all the sense in the world. Not only would it tie in thematically with the boss's gimmick, but it would also be a great way for Banks to aspire to the lying, cheating and stealing that her idol Eddie Guerrero used to be so famous for. After attacking the Raw Women's Champion and fan favourite Becky Lynch upon her return, a pay-per-view showdown between the two is inevitable. So what better way for Sasha Banks to cement herself as the Red Brand's top heel than by cheating to win and dethroning the man in the process. Number 5, Roman Reigns, The Undertaker's Last Ride. And we continue the ceremonial passing down of the dead man's moves with the last ride, and who better to wield this devastating weapon than one of only 2 men to ever beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Reigns defeating the dead man in 2017 wasn't exactly welcomed by fans, so adopting one of Taker's signature moves back then might have been absolutely disastrous. 2 years on, however, and many things have changed. Roman Reigns is now largely accepted as the face of the company, and The Undertaker, well, he's had his own ups and downs to deal with, shout out to Simon Miller, since what initially appeared to be his retirement match against the Big Dog. Nevertheless, the pair teamed up at Extreme Rules in a match of the night tag team bout against Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre, and while Undertaker's retirement may have to wait a little while longer, seriously, that tank top man, 2 more years, I'm telling you. Why not have him donate one of his most devastating maneuvers to the man who now runs the yard in 2019? Number 4, Bayley, Christian's Kill Switch. Now let me start by saying this. I love you, Pamela. I really, really do. But the Bayley to belly needs to go. Or at least as a finisher anyway. Okay, look, I get it. She hugs them and then she slams them. And she's the hugger. And I get it. It's cute. And it's nice, but it's just not a match finisher for me. What is a match finisher, however, is Christian's old maneuver, the Kill Switch, or the Unprettier, whichever you prefer. Now, I've got to be honest here, there isn't much rationale behind switching to Christian's move, but hey, Bayley spent enough time on the Edge and Christian show that totally reeks of awesomeness, so that's my justification, and to be honest, I'm sticking to it. Number 3, Finn Balor, TAJIRI'S Poison Mist. Now, shoutouts of course go to the Great Muta for this one too, but back in the Attitude Era, the man who made the mist will always be the Japanese buzzsaw, Tajiri. Now, while not technically a finishing move in its own right, the Poison Mist is still essentially a match winner when used discreetly enough and followed up by any number of maneuvers. The move itself has a long history in Japan, dating back to the Great Kabuki, and someone else with a history in Japan is, of course, Finn Balor. Thinking more of the Irishman's alter ego, one of the main criticisms of Balor's demon form, on the main roster at least, is that he uses almost exactly the same moves as regular Balor, and the changes aren't half as noticeable as they were in NXT. Adding the mist into his arsenal would not only work aesthetically, especially red mist, imagine that, but the poison aspect would also connect with the Balor from Irish mythology that Finn drew his inspiration from, whose eye, it was said, was poisonous. Number 2, Samoa Joe, Umaga's Super Samoan Drop. As good as the Coquina Clutch is, I feel like Samoa Joe needs that one big move to replace the loss of his Muscle Buster, and that one big move might just be the Super Samoan Drop. Now, there aren't many moves similar to the Muscle Buster or as visually striking, but the Super Samoan Drop comes pretty damn close. A pop-up variation of the regular Samoan Drop, when executed well, is a stunning finish, and Joe has both the power and speed to deliver it perfectly. When used on the right opponents, this would be a devastating finisher, and a great way for Joe to establish his dominance, particularly over smaller wrestlers. And number 1, Drew McIntyre, The Undertaker's Tombstone Piledriver. Well, we've already passed down the Hell's Gate and the Last Ride, so if you didn't see this one coming, well, that's on you really, isn't it? Not many people on the current roster could get away with adopting the Tombstone Piledriver, but one man who absolutely could is the Scottish psychopath, Drew McIntyre. Whether it's the fact that he's got that dark sadistic side to him, the fact that he's an absolute physical specimen, or maybe it's just the fact that McIntyre could make this move look even more devastating than it already does, something about this just seems to fit. McIntyre's run on the main roster so far has seen him play lackey to Dolph Ziggler, Baron Corbin, and now Shane McMahon, and while it hasn't been all that bad for him, the time is right for Drew to go solo and become the one-man wrecking crew that he's destined to be. There are many candidates to finally retire the dead man, but for my money, Drew McIntyre is definitely towards the top of that list. And when the time finally comes, why not have Drew brutalise the legend, much in the same way he did Kurt Angle on Raw last year, and have the Scottish psychopath revel in the heel boos by stealing the final finisher that fans will never again see from the dead man.